I understand that, but wouldn't you put that in this budget here?
It is. It's in that first contractual line item that you saw denoted by item number 1. It's 42011, maintenance equipment grounds.
I'm sorry. I thought it'd be under snow. Thank you.
Anything else? Please continue.
Concludes that one. Moving on to 174, the next tab, the summary sheet for the sanitation fund. Again, no employees, no part-time. The expenditure type chart looks remarkably the same every year. Going to the next page, 175, the revenues. The increase in revenues is predicated on the kind of goes in union with the increase in the expense side. As the contract goes up, the city's costs go up, and so we increase the cost that we charge to the residents. And so that the charges for service increase there is just a reflection of the increased revenue based upon the fact we have to charge more for the contract price going up.
Well, by the way, where do you suggest we put that 10,000 for the generators? Where will that be?
We had Manager Murmas and I had both jotted down the general fund.
Sorry, what?
We had both jotted down the general fund, central services.
Thank you. Mr. Wesley? Not you,
It-
our
what-
Wesley.
Give me an example of sanitary fund of processing fees for credit cards, $750. Who would use a,
Sure. As you know, the bills that we send out is a combination of water and sewer. And so as you swipe your credit card, a certain portion of it goes to the water fund, a certain portion of the revenues go to the sanitation fund. So it's pretty much just a pro rata share
stretching?
of
Okay.
that.
You, Wesley, did you have a question?
Yeah, and I'll ask this question, and the chairman gave me the answer, but I hear it from Clean Air Count. Why did it jump $1,300 from this year's budget? What extra projects we adding in here?
Yeah, I will,
Alderman sitting next to you.
Well,
I'll say-
I'm
I'll-
waiting,
Tell
that's
them.
what I'd like to know what the other projects are.
I'll defer to either Madam Chairman, Manager Murmas, or Staff Liaison Vesta, whichever one wants
I mean,
to.
Alderman Winger.
I'll let Mr. Murmas first explain, and then I'll supplement.
Go ahead.
Oh, I know one of the programs the council may remember, some months back, we passed a grant program, a grant reimbursement for residents for constructing or purchasing their own rain barrel. And the funding for that program wasn't going to start until this fiscal year. But we had already got clearance from the council to institute the program, but we had to wait till we got new budget monies to do that. So that's a new project that we're doing, the rain barrel grant program.
And then in addition to that, it's the standard green fare as well. So last year, we had 1,000 budgeted, or for this current budget year. So the 1,000 standard budget item, as well as the 1,000 for the rain barrel reimbursement program. And it is built, and it will be demonstrated at our green fair and on April 21st. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. 10 to noon, or 10 to 2 at City Hall.
Everybody got that? Okay. Please go on.
As I mentioned on the revenue side, the increase in the contractual service is predicated strictly upon the increase in the contract with Republic Services. The rates are detailed at the bottom of the page there. We'll update that from BFI to ARC. BFI was bought by Allied, who was ultimately bought by Republic Services, who also owns ARC. So it's still the same company, just a few iterations down the road. Like I
Do
said,
we just have a 2-year contract? I thought we had a 4-year.
seven.
Pardon me?
7-year contract.
7-year. But it includes increases.
7 years. Oh, my
Correct.
Oh, okay.
that's a long time.
Go ahead.
Aside from the clean air increase, there's I have no other comments on the sanitation fund.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
No other comments from staff?
No, other comments? No. Coleman?
The next tab, just to circle back and finish out the enterprise funds, it's one we've already talked about a few times, was the Water and Sewer Capital Projects Fund. This is per the committee's direction back in January when we discussed the CIP. The only difference from then to now is we tightened up the number on the treatment plant based upon the engineer's estimates, and we added in the monies for the engineering on the Irving Park Road water main. But as I said, this was already discussed and vetted out back in January when we presented the CIP. So just circling back
Questions?
and make sure we catch it.
Nothing. Continue.
For the ease of just going straight through and not having to bounce around a whole lot, we'll go back to the Road and Bridge Fund. The Road and Bridge Fund tab, if you're looking at the page numbers 153.
153.
This is a special revenue fund. We get the lion's share of the money for this fund through property taxes. It's not something that we levy for, it's something the county levies for us on our behalf. So the revenue this year anticipated to be up approximately $4,000 based upon an increase in the property tax levy. The expenditure side is exactly the same as it was the year before. And you'll notice the $200,000 going to the General Capital Projects Fund to help pay for some of the roadway maintenance, which is an allowed use for the Road and Bridge Fund.
Comments? Alderman Roy was,
Brad, when the county levies for us on these, does that just come out of their motor fuel tax, or where does that? Property taxes, I mean, where do they get it from? Because we're getting, I don't know, where we get 6.73% on the property tax? Whatever it is.
Correct. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I've never gotten a clear answer as to how they calculate that. I know we do get occasionally that replacement tax money, that $2,500. We get that from Addison Township as a little bit of replacement tax money. But as to the derivation of that tax line, that top tax line, unfortunately, I have to get back to you if that's okay. But it's not something that we levy, that the city levies. It's the county remits that on the same schedule that they remit the other property taxes.
Just wanna know if that's coming out of that 6-point-some% or whatever that we get on our property taxes. But that's okay, you can get back to me.
Yeah, the property tax, it doesn't affect the property tax levy that we pass in December, that 2.7-ish number. This is exclusive of that number.
Alderman E. Wesley.
It does raise to me a concern. Do we own the Elizabeth Park Bridge? Does anyone, we own it.
Yes.
So my question here, and fresh my memory here, several years ago, we asked that it be inspected to see if it met the requirement and for safety reason. And I believe we were also looking at to repaint that bridge. Did something happen to that project that we didn't do it? And the other thing is, do we own any other bridge? Do we own the one on Irving Park Road, or does IDOT own that?
I will defer on both of those to Mr. Kramer or Mr. Steffen.
Yep, we do own the Elizabeth Park Bridge and then the bike bridge over Irving Park Road. The Irving Park Road Bridge for Route 19 is owned by IDOT. We did inspect the bridge, and we have most recently inspected the bridge even after it was back in '09, which you're referring to. We inspected it most recently because some structural issues that we were located by staff an inspection into, found not to be problematic. There's some minor repairs necessary that'll just be incorporated in our normal street repairs, nothing to be alarmed. The painting issue, the railings, and I'll defer to Mr. Steffen, but I believe those railings were not to be painted. They were designed to be, to allow to weather and almost verdigris that design. They were not to be painted. I believe we've gone back and forth on that several times, and that was the final outcome of that.
I have one follow-up question.
Mr. Kramer is correct. Yeah, we did perform a bridge inspection last year. We are on a cycle, a 2-year cycle where we are required to inspect all our bridges, and we have completed that. There is some work that's going to be coming up here shortly, but somewhere down the line on the bridge for the Elizabeth. But we are required by state law to inspect our bridges annually.
Okay, but
Go ahead.
on a follow-up on, you said that there's some projects coming up for repairs on the bridge. You made it say, is $20,000 for your recommendation, is $20,000 enough to do those repairs that need to be done? Or,
At this
because
point,
you guys should know, since you already did the inspection.
yes, at this point that we feel that's sufficient.
Okay.
Alderman
Thank you.
Coles.
I thought the lower part of the bridge had to be painted, top part not. Is it steel structure on
The steel structure underneath,
I thought that was supposed to be painted, and the top, no. If I remember right.
I can't remember, one that needed to be and one doesn't. But yeah, I think you're correct.
The bottom part of the bridge was inspected. That paint did not have any significant failures, so we're holding off on painting that for right now. The top part of the bridge is the bone of contention that I remember in the past. The railings that were not painted, those are the ones that are designed not to be painted.
The bottom part had to be painted.
Correct.
Would this be a good time for a 5-minute break?
Good idea.
Anybody agree?
I-
5
I
minutes.
have a question.
Wait,
Are we?
Roy's got
is-
a question.
Is Mr.
what
Kramer?
can we do on the break?
Yeah, no, because Mr. Kramer's probably gonna leave.
Okay, no, not yet.
No, not yet.
Okay, I'll wait.
No, no way.
Okay.
Okay, break, 5 minutes.
I hope it's a shallow grave, too.
Now we're gonna push that back here, try and smooth out the costs over here. The budget smoothing thing. We kind of put it in there.
55, no employees budget out of this fund. 156 is the revenues and expenditures for this fund. The revenues in the motor fuel tax fund are delivered to the city on a per capita basis. We used the January 2012 IML review estimates to put these numbers together. You will notice, though, that the fiscal 2011 actual and the fiscal 2012 projected are 50,000, give or take, higher than what the other years have been. Back in 11, the state passed a capital bill, and that money was released in 2 equal payments, and we received one of those payments in 11 and one of those payments in 12. So that's why the spikes are there. That's not money that should be consistently counted on receiving, which is why the revenue is based just on the per capita distribution. So far as new items in the motor fuel tax fund, the only new item of note is in the equipment rental. Last year, as you recall, we did a lease for vehicle 231, one of the city's snowplow units. That lease was a 3-year lease, so that number is in that 105,000. And the second of the city's snowplow fleet is needing to be replaced in this fiscal year, and we're proposing to do a lease for that as well. much like we did last year for Unit 231.
So we have 2 new snowplows, basically. One from the last budget, one from this one,
Correct.
for a total of 5 plows?
Total of 6.
6. Okay. Any questions? Mr. E. Wesley?
All right, let's go to the snow and ice control. Obviously, that's a salt purchase, I assume. Are we going down that salt purchase, knowing that we got this overabundance of salt? I mean, how much are we looking, or are you looking to purchase the same amount, or? I know it's a dart, but.
Mr. Kramer?
I wouldn't recommend dropping our allocation. We know we're going to have some overage from this year that we'll do next year, that will carry over into next year, whether we have a off-site location where that's stored, whether or not we work out an agreement with a neighboring municipality to store it with them and then, take it back. However we work that out, I still wouldn't recommend dropping down from the 1,300 ton annual usage that the city has. We may have had a light year this year, but again, we still live in Chicago. We still have 4 true seasons. We're going to have winter again. So even though Alderman R. Wesley is shaking his head vehemently to my left here, so I would anticipate leaving that number the same. If you would like to conservatively drop it for next year, that's fine. We can do that. But again, just know that, we pay $64 a ton for salt right now currently. We use anywhere between 1,000 and 1,300 ton a year. That's $64,000. You've got another $10,000 to $20,000 a year, depending on how much anti-icing equipment. That's how we come up with the $90,000 number. There's no magic there. It's basically just whole numbers. We know what the price is. We know what the dollar figures are. Next year we could budget a little less, but just know that in a year from then, when we do the following budget, that number is going to go back up to 90,000. May go lower based on our contract salt price, may go higher if our contract salt price goes up again.
So more or less, you are not, so the 90,000, if it's left there, which you can't do too much with that account anyways, you are not anticipating buying as much salt as you did this year. You would downgrade because we got all the leftovers, or?
Correct, to a
Okay,
degree.
That's it. Thank you.
And the beet juice is included in that?
Correct.
And what streets do you do the beet juice? It's not all the side streets, is it?
It's listed on our webpage. I can get you another list of the streets we've done. We basically ranked it on traffic. What are the high traffic areas in town? And it's basically about 25 miles of the city streets that we do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Mayor?
John, real quick on the salt. How much salt do we still have to buy per this year's contract? Because I know you told me it was 80%.
12 trucks.
And that is how many ton?
20 tons of trucks, so you're talking 240 tons. 1/4 of our allotment.
That we have to buy.
Correct.
240.
Can you get ionized? No. Never mind.
Margarita salt.
Alderman
Don't
Coles.
run away, John.
I'm going to arrange
You make
myself
a
a seat at the
contract.
table.
When you make a contract out for the salt, that's a contract that you make out over a period of what, 1 year or 2 years?
We've been working off of a year-by-year contract extension with Morton Salt.
All right, if you drop down, the price might go up. because,
Absolutely.
So we'll be in the same situation as we are when the brush came up and nobody picked them up, and then all of a sudden we needed somebody and we couldn't get nobody. And there was 1 year that we got to the salt, I remember you saying, who am I gonna get the salt from? And we don't wanna go through that prediction again.
You're absolutely right.
Let's just say, keep it the way it is. That's what I say. All right.
Thank you, Alderman Coles. Any other comments? Continue, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to 157, the Tourism Fund. There are some partial employees taken out of this fund, as well as the 2 dial-a-ride drivers. The rationale for the partial employees is that they have a distinct hand in the promotion of the city, the tourism, promoting the city, Prairie Fest, et cetera. So if we go to page 158, there's actually 2 expanded level items. I know we haven't had any of these yet so far in the budget, but there's 2 expanded level items in here. The first one's on page 158. As per the description, it's a utility cart vehicle that the city would use for events like Prairie Fest, Memorial Day. Obviously, would get utilized more than just those 2 times of the year around the city for different things. Manager Murmas has recommended this, and the not-to-exceed price tag on this is $10,400.
Yeah, I didn't realize we had to rent the one at the Wooddale Fest last year.
Correct. I believe we borrow one from the Park District and
Borrow
rent
or
one as
whatever.
well. Yes, we borrow and rent.
I kind of think it'd be nice to have our own. Alderman Wesley.
The manager put in utility vehicle here. Is this gonna get us in trouble because it's supposed to be used for promoting tourism, like a utility vehicle? How does that promote? Someone coming to Wooddale to see something?
Well, we have everything to do with Prairie Fest is typically taken out of the tourism account, so this is going to be utilized at Prairie Fest, utilized at other events, as well as, certainly we don't want to let it sit there when we're not having a festival or something, so then we can then use it for other items as well.
Okay, I just didn't think that you could use vehicles for. I thought that was kinda stretching it. But
There's probably things that are more of a stretch than that.
I'm sure.
Any other comments? And then we have the new decorative street lighting for all the new Wooddale Prairie lights.
Correct. And as I mentioned to a couple of you, if for some reason all of the lights don't go up or 47 sets is too many, obviously we're just going to buy what we need to accommodate the new lights. It's not going to be a thing where, hey, we can buy 47, let's buy 47 and set 10 on a shelf. That's not the intention here. The intention is to make sure that we can cover ourselves, but should it fall short of that number, we're not going to just buy wantonly for no good reason.
Now, those wreaths and garlands are they're reused each year, right? Correct. We store them.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Wesley.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on 161 already. I'll wait.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson. We'll wait till we get to one more page.
As I absent any other questions, that's fine.
On page 161. Okay, Mr. Wesley.
You have the Veteran Memorial. Where's the parade for the Memorial Day parade? I don't see it in this.
Sure, that comes out of the community events line item, directly below that. In that line item, and we can add that to the, and we can add a little more descriptor to that footnote. But it's for the Memorial Day Parade, Prairie Fest, the movies in the park. I'm trying to think of a couple other events that we do that comes out of that community event line item there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Let me get to Alderman Winger.
Oh, thank you. And we're on 161, correct? Page 161, okay. So, Mr. Wilson, can you refresh my memory on how the salaries, so line item 40101 and 40105 break out? I know there is a description, but I'm having trouble understanding it on page 157.
Certainly. The easier of the two is the 5 account, 40105. That part-time employment, that's the salaries for the dial-a-ride drivers to drive the dial-a-ride bus. the senior bus. The other salary is the 40101. You are correct, there is a breakdown on, is it 157? How
Yep.
that's broken out. It's an allocation of 3 different employees. So what we do is we determine what their particular salary is going to be for the particular year.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever that percentage allocation is, we take that and book that in the tourism fund, and then the remainder of that allocation in their respective department in the general fund.
Okay, so then on page 157, where it says full-time FTE 0.05, does that mean the city manager is 0.05% allocated to the tourism?
5%, correct, yes. It's
Okay.
5%, yeah.
Oh, gotcha, okay. And then economic development coordinator, which is what, Mr. Clicker? That would be 25%.
Correct,
So now I got my 30. 50% administrative assistant, which is Christina.
correct.
Okay. So, oh God, okay, so then there's 80% of an FTE is allocated here.
Correct,
Plus 2 part-times to drive the bus.
correct.
Okay. Got it. Because that 0.75 is, I guess, confusing to me as well. The part-time FTE, 75%.
Correct, and speaking with Mr. Kramer, they run approximately a 6-hour day. So assuming a standard workday is 8 hours,
Okay.
6 hours is 75% of a standard workday.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Wesley.
Where's the facade program coming out of if we move forward with that?
Capital Projects Fund.
Why would it not come out tourism? If you're making beautiful of our town, is that pushing the button? I don't know. I mean, we buy wind sculptures out tourism.
Sure. There were a couple different reasons why it was originally taken out of the Capital Projects Fund. One was, as you recall, there's a line item in the CIP for strategic plan items to address those, and the facade program was addressed in the strategic plan. Additionally, working under the premise that the facade program took off and was popular, we wanted to have a more significant and substantially backed revenue stream. So not to say that the tourism fund isn't, but if that money is being used for Prairie Fest, the parades, things like that, we could run the risk of running out of funding for that program faster than if it was in the Capital Projects Fund, just by way of revenue streams. And so in order to try and procure the longevity of the program, we moved it to a fund which we thought had a more constant and significant revenue stream than just the hotel taxes.
So my question is it program that we talked about, is it in this year's budget?
Yes.
Facade program,
Yes.
further down the line? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Brad, I see there's a ending balance here that's 142,000 in cash, right? Page 161.
Correct. I mean, that might not be specifically cash, but that's a close enough indicator for a fund like this to cash, correct?
Because what Alderman Wesley just said about the facade program, depending if how much money we're gonna put towards it, couldn't we take half of this enterprise fund, right?
Special revenue fund for tourism.
But we can bring this, well, we don't wanna bring it all the way down because you need seed money for the fest and everything. So
Correct, yeah.
I think it's, the facade program wouldn't work for like tourism? No?
Like I said, I mean, it could, I mean, because, you know, you're beautifying the community.
Some, I mean,
and some,
this way
but,
we help supplement.
you know, I mean, just,
capital
but if you look at the fund, the surplus deficit, which is a few lines up, this year with the 2 expanded items, you know, looking at deficit of just under 16,000. The year before, budgeted surplus of 4,000. And then the 2 years before, you know, loss of 27, loss of 220. As I mentioned, Alderman Wesley, the fear with putting a program like that in here is that once you start to draw down the fund balance, you're going to lose your flexibility to do other things. And we didn't want that program to get cut, so we put it in the capital projects fund, like I said, for a more stable funding source for the longevity of the program. But you certainly could. Like I said, it was put in with the strategic plan items in the CIP.
Alderman Winger.
Thank you. Two things, just to refresh my memory, that 65,000 general fund transfer, is that for the street lights each year we were putting aside some, or the bridge, or what is that? I can't remember, I don't recall.
Sure, that's the reimbursement transfer to the general fund. Because while we did allocate some salaries, that helped the tourism, there's less significant amounts of salaries that go into planning this stuff throughout the year. Also, as a function of, just for example, mailing out the sponsorship packets for Prairie Fest. I think the cost on that is it's a few $1,000s to mail out all the packets, and the postage for that comes out of the general fund. So, going back to our allocation questions, is it fair to charge a fund that's not doing the work for that cost? I mean, it's really not. So that transfer is to reimburse the general fund for phones, postage, office supplies, other nominal salaries, if it's like 0.5%, 1%, something like that.
It seems heavy, to me at least. And postage, even if it were 5,000, that only makes up 5,000 out of the 65,000. I mean, it seems considerable amount. In 2010, we did 50, then we bumped it up to 65,000.
It is.
And we're already hitting the salaries and taking out the FICA and the IMRF and part-time, and it just seems heavy that the tourism money, I believe, should go into the community as much as possible. So I'd like to request a better figure on that, of what is a true figure. And circle back.
Was there a question? I'm sorry, I was looking at something else.
Yeah, my concern is line item 48001. I want to see more information that substantiates $65,000 going to the general fund, when we've already accounted for salaries and FICA and IMRF. And I mean, if it's 3,000 of postage, I get it, that's 3,000. What makes up the other 62,000? Or maybe it's a matter of lowering that number of what goes to the general fund and put more money in our community and beautifying it for the residents. And that's really the true purpose of these monies.
I have the manager's input.
I would recommend that we don't tinker for tinker's sake. Historically, that number's always been up in that upper 50s to 60s range. You start messing with that, you take away that money and don't transfer it to the general fund, then we'll be coming back here with a general fund deficit and talk about making cuts to the general fund. And we don't even spend the money we have in there right now on the tourism fully. I mean, we have a fund balance, like was pointed out, so we don't even spend what we have now. So if we add, it's just the fund balance could just grow. I mean, certainly we can do more projects, but right now we're not. So we would jeopardize the general fund, and historically it's always been this number. I wouldn't tinker, but it's up to the council.
Alderman Winger, you want to follow up on that?
When I look at the two line items, 48001, and yeah, it's been historical, 50,000, then 65,000, and a 65,000, so that's our 3-year snapshot. But line item 40102 has, 40101, the salaries, it was low at 15.4 in the first year, second year 24.4, and then it almost doubled in 2012. And then we're looking at keeping it there. So we're certainly giving a bump in the admin area. There's no question about that already. So I do want to know more information on this, and as we do accumulate monies, then maybe we will look to do more projects, or perhaps the 50,000 that goes to streetscape maybe we will ramp up the projects that they look at and really put some quality into our community so people do want to come here.
Manager? Mr. Wilson?
Oh, sure. Just want to point out, and we can get some more finite numbers, but if you go to page 69 of your budget book,
69?
yes, 69, correct. With the exception of the water and sewer fund, and like I said, we don't have finite numbers next to all these, but we do list out on this page what those transfers account for. Like I said, not a dollar figure in all cases in the water and sewer fund we do. You'll see, there's finance department salaries that aren't allocated to tourism, public works salaries, their equipment usage and rental, police department salaries, other administration and clerk's office salaries, community development, they do inspections for the Prairie Fest and other events, postage, phone, internet, and other miscellaneous items, paper clips, file folders, stuff like that. So, I mean, if you want us to try and get some finite numbers attached to those, we can, but that's a listing of what comprises that number.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like more finite, because there's a little confusion on this end of if police is actually in the overtime line item, or if it's in the actual 65,000 line item. As well as there's some other ones mentioned in that description that you read off. The costs include finance department salaries, public work, so I thought finance was already, was finance in there? Yeah, I just would like more clarification. Because admin is mentioned there, but we already accounted for salaries in the other line item.
Certainly.
Okay,
Yeah, we can clarify that for you.
okay, thank you.
Alderman Wesley?
Okay. I have a question, the items that we have just passed, that we authorize, the vehicle utility and the,
What page you on now?
I'm sorry, tourism fund, 58 and 59, and we'll go to 161, I'm sorry, 161.
Okay.
My question on that, the expansion of these two items, is that in this line item? Because I don't see 10-4 in here. But are the lights in there to decorate, for Christmas wreaths and that? Oh, yeah, season so where is the vehicle in there? Is it not in there?
No, it's under the community events line item. You'll notice the prior year's budget was 120. The current year budget is
Oh, so you
130,
went, okay, so you
400.
put under that, community
did.
event.
Correct. And the decoration, the wreaths and whatnot are under the seasonal decorations line item.
Okay. All right.
All right. And I think the mayor had a request from the senior club asking that the luncheon once a year be a line item because the community donations is not a large amount, 3,500 only, and it costs 1,500 normally for a luncheon for the seniors, for the senior club. Please, Mr. Mayor.
Actually, I think last year we did 1,000, but I don't even think it came out of this budget, and I spoke to the manager about it yesterday already.
It didn't come out of this budget?
It did not come out of this, not out of the tourism fund, or did it? Did it come out of the, is it in there?
It should have.
It's in here, right?
Correct.
Is it in this? Okay. But it's already included.
Correct.
It's already included. Right,
So do you think that's a sufficient amount, or should it be a separate line item?
it was,
1,000.
which line item was it, Brad?
In the community donations line item, the 49070.
Whatever it is, okay.
Yeah, and since
You have the scouts, the red, water rats,
Yeah, in the past, we've done the senior luncheon, the water rats, the Boy Scouts, the bedding or the pads for pads. I remember it was a year and a half ago, we bought some of the mattresses or the foam pads for the pads organization at the community church. That came out of there as well. But since we know that that's a program that the city wants, we've kind of internally already earmarked money for that out of that line item.
Pull it out, set it on the side?
Correct. Yeah, we already know that the money's, we have a couple that we know every year we're gonna give money to that organization, so we just kind of cloister that money off at the beginning of the year.
Is that okay, Mr. Mayor? Okay. Anything, Mr. Roy Wesley?
We do one luncheon for them?
Yes.
The city does one, the police department does one.
And the police one comes out of the police pension, and out of the police budget?
Yes.
Correct.
And it's only how much is it? 1,000?
We put last year we did 1,000, but I think we only spent like 800.
Okay, it was under 1,000, and I know, in speaking to the police department, theirs historically has been a little under 1,000 as well.
Okay.
Anything else? Please continue.
Yeah, absent any other questions on that, this next one should be pretty quick. The Narcotics Forfeiture Fund. This is money that we collect via narcotics cases, drug busts. It's what our dog helps us do, Canine Leica. And the expenses for this can only be used to promote the further fight of, narcotics, vet bills for the canine unit, things of that nature.
Any questions?
Well,
Mr. Roy Wesley?
how old is NICA, and how often do we gotta change them?
Yeah, I'll defer to Chief Festa.
And I'm requesting a extra bonus of dog food in this budget too.
She is 5 going on 6, I believe. If all stays well, with health-wise, we expect to get 3 to 4 more years out of her of useful time. 3 to 4 more years. Usually, the 8 to 10 year range is when the dogs start to get. We need to give them a break. So hopefully 3 to 4 more years.
And she's got a backup with my Maltese.
What's that?
Never mind.
Back up.
Next item.
Just want to
Eugene,
verify
have
there's no other questions.
No? Okay. Pardon me? Oh, okay. Please continue, Mr. Wilson.
Sure, thank you. The next fund in the book, moving along, 164, the Capital Projects Fund. Again, this was discussed at length back in January. Per a previous question, there is a line item in here on page 166 called Strategic Plan, and that currently is where the money for the facade program, as well as some other projects that we were able to identify costs for the strategic plan document that was passed in, I want to say, December, early January. There's a number of projects in that particular pot of $600,500 for this current year. One of those, as I said a couple times, is the money for the facade program.
Mr. Wesley?
So we went ahead and put $600,500 into the strategic plan when we haven't in the past. And that is for, first my memory, for the facade program, right? And what else? I don't have my capital CIP project.
Oh, sure. For the facade program, there's money in there for estimated design costs for a citywide sign project. That's been talked about a couple of times, unifying the signs throughout the whole city. There's money in there for the Salt Creek Trail, the creek walk that's been talked about. Money for the downtown master plan that's been discussed. This one's kind of being done currently, the Public Works Site Assessment,
No, that isn't being done.
and, well, we're working on the Public Works facility, so. And the conversion from the traditional lighting to the LED street lights.
Okay, can I do a follow-up on that? So these are plans that we budget for, and does the council approve all these items already?
Oh, either that or some of them are dead.
Because let's start weaving these projects out. If some of these projects are dead, then maybe we don't need $600,000 there. I mean, some of these projects, I know, my feelings are, it's not gonna get my vote. I just don't see why we put all these projects in here. And when we do a budget, I would think that we would, as a council, decide what projects go into budget and what don't. To earmark 600,500 in there. And we haven't done, I mean, we had other projects in the past years and we never put anything in there that way. I mean, again, this is a new line item again in the budget, and where did all those other projects go that we didn't pass? What account did that fall under, and where did that fall? I mean, I just,
In other words, you want a breakdown of the different projects we're talking about and how much for each?
well, yeah, because we have never put that much, in the past couple of years, we have done projects as a council up here, that we approve projects. We never had a total line item with a set amount of projects, that this project was earmarked for this account, this account, this account. Now you're putting 600,000 in this account for a whole bunch of projects. We never done it in the past. I don't think we should start doing that. You know what?
Yes, sir, and then Alderman Woods after you're done.
Sure. Just a couple quick points. The reason that we never put a pot of money in for projects like this and a strategic line item plan is you never had a strategic plan before. So that's A. And second, this is an estimated cost. If the projects are dead, then we just don't spend the money and it just goes back in. So, you know, as you know, this is just a planning document that this is what we expect it to be. If you think project X isn't going to happen, we might never even bring you a contract for it, and then it just falls off and it dies a peaceful death. All of these things being over $10,000 would have to come back to the council to get approval for anyways before we can expend the money. So at that time, you know, they can be squashed at that point.
Alderman Woods.
Yeah, thank you. Brad stole a couple of things I was going to say, but that is, you know, it's like saying we never had money for capital improvements till we had a program for it. And now, you know, every year we put it in the budget. We created this strategic plan. Everybody sat down, picked out these projects, agreed on them, that we were going to do them. And so now we got to start putting money in there to fund the projects. Like Brad said, each one of them individually is going to come back to us. So we have to vote on it. But in concept, we want to fund the things that we sat and talked about and agreed to or not. That's the big question. I would say that we leave the money in there and you review the projects as they come along. Thanks.
The only difficulty I see with it is that when we talk about some of these projects, we don't know what the cost is going to be. So we don't really know if it's going to come up or not. That's why I'd like to see individual listing of each project and approximate cost, even if it's, you know, best guess cost. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Brad, basically, like the facade program, we talked about it a few weeks ago. The concept plan, I think, for Irving Park and Wooddale Road, what we're gonna do with the land over there after the safety improvements are done. Some of these projects are gonna come forward, not, I shouldn't say they're coming forward, they're gonna come before the council. Because I know it was discussed if the facade, well, how much, the questions were, how much are we gonna spend, how much are we gonna do? The council have full participation. They're gonna make the choices on how much. It may go that they don't wanna do anything on the facade program and kill it, and there'll be no money spent. It's gonna come to us We're not gonna spend, they're not spending a dime until it comes to us. The council's gonna make the final vote. I know some of the aldermen had some questions on the facade program. I'm sure they got questions on the concept plan, which is gonna be coming up in about 2 to 4 weeks.
But this is the kind of thing that, well, there's money there, so we gotta spend it.
I'm not of
And
that
that's
belief,
what
ever.
I don't like to see. I'd rather see it listed per project and approximately how much. That way, if there's some we don't think are worth the money, we can weed it out. Alderman Wesley.
Where is the, on the 605, is that for the decorated lights that we approve as a council already for Salt Creek Bridge? Is that coming out of there? Because I don't see, we pass, and we are in a process, no, we passed to put those lights on Salt Creek Bridge. That was a part of grant money, and we were waiting for IDOT to approve the lighting on it. And since then, I believe IDOT approved the lighting, but I don't see where is that coming out of?
Mr. Wilson?
The line item directly below strategic plan called Irving Park Salt Creek Bridge. That's the money that was budgeted last fiscal year to complete that project.
Okay, again, all accounts get zeroed out if they are not used for this year. Am I correct?
Budgetarily, you're correct.
Okay, so we would have to earmark that money again for this year's budget. So you better take that $175,000 and put it in a proposed budget for 2013. Because if we didn't spend it and you're going to roll it over all accounts, it's going to have to come back to this council for approval to move forward. You guys, and we had this discussion several years ago. If it is not spent in this year, all accounts go down to zero. And then you start over again. It's always been that way, as this council. So I don't know why you didn't take that $175,000 and move it over in 2013 for those lights, because if we aren't going to use it this year, then we need to air that over there. So that even shows our account even higher in capital projects.
Yeah, and I can defer to Mr. Kramer, Mr. Steffen, but back when we put the CIP together in December, we were still under the presumption it would be done by April 30th. If that's changed, then we can certainly roll that forward, but in December, that was the best information that we had. So if they have different information at this time, we
My
can
question
change it,
here
but-
tonight, and we have the two people here, are you guys going to guarantee me that those lights are going to be up and lit by April 1st? That will be pretty funny up here,
Or April 31st. right?
or up 31st, or whatever you said, because it ain't happening. I'll tell you that.
Mr. Kramer?
The purchase of the lights will be booked before April 31st, before the
What was
May
it?
1 deadline. The installation portion, legitimately, you're right, there's no way it will be billed before May 1st of 2012.
Okay, again, so this account needs to go back, and you need to earmark some money over for 2013 for this project. Because I don't know what the lights were going to cost. I don't know, but you got nothing scheduled to do it. Because if that project came to be installed, I will pull out my budget book and say, there's no money in that budget. So move the money over then. Because if there ain't no money, everyone comes up here and says, well, it's a budget item. Well, if that bridge light comes up, I'm going to say, I don't think so, no money in the budget, where are you getting it from? So move that money over then if that's the case.
Mr. Wilson?
No, just gonna certainly I'll get with Mr. Kramer and we'll come up with appropriate numbers, but yeah.
Okay, let's not spend all night on. That's ridiculous. On this, do we have a consensus as to what we want to do? I personally would like to see a breakdown of each of the projects and how much.
Okay.
Does everybody agree with that? Does anybody agree with that?
I do.
Does anybody say no?
No.
I'll say no.
Well, it's unanimous, not unanimous. It's passes, so. Mr. Woods, quickly.
I was just
we
saying
go
that, I understand the concerns, that you don't want to throw $650,000 out there and everybody spends it willy-nilly. The problem is, this is a new system, this strategic plan is new to us, we're trying to develop a lot of new initiatives, and to put those numbers together, solid numbers, would be very hard. So what would happen is we'd come back and go, here's 3 or 4 numbers, and then when it comes back to the council, it's either higher or way lower. I mean, right now, we don't have a good handle on that. It's not like like the road programs in town. We know exactly what roads are because we do them every year. These are things that we don't do and haven't done. So it would be hard to really put down a number that we would have to agree on now. I mean, we'd have more discussion or debates over that than actually getting the project done. Thank you.
Roy Wesley.
I'm not good. Information technology, what is that? It's went from 60,000 to 180,000.
$46043.
There's 2 things that go into that line item for this year. 3 actually, excuse me. One is continuation of implementation of the asset management software that Mr. Kramer presented a couple weeks ago. Another smaller item is a sign printer for the streets department to do basic roadway signs, things of that nature. And the larger ticket item, which we discussed at pretty good length during the CIP meeting, was installation of some fiber lines here at City Hall, upgrading of one of the servers, trying to get them all in the same server version, Server 2008, which I know was briefly touched on earlier. There was also some point-to-point or additional fiber between here and the Public Works facilities to improve their speed, because their speed is lacking significantly, both at the 720 facility and the 269 facility. So it's those 3 projects, the asset management software, the sign printer, and fiber server upgrades and
Okay.
increased speed to the Public Works buildings.
Thank you.
May I make a suggestion? How many more tabs do we have to go for Mr. Kramer tonight?
4.
Why don't we put this off till next week, this idea of the strategic plan? And we can think about it a little bit more and discuss it, because he doesn't have to be here for that. Just that one item. Can we do that?
Sure.
And let's go on so we can get him out of here for next week. I mean, it's not that we want to get rid of him, but he wants to get rid of us.
Can I say one thing?
One thing.
I've been listening. If we discontinue all the things that we don't have yet in here, we might as well not have anything engineered, checked, because what's the use of spending the money for engineering if we're not gonna get it done? You got all kind of papers up there that we spent thousands of dollars sitting on a shelf up there, that are projects that were supposed to be done, that wasn't done. So what's the use of spending the money for engineering? We might as well just sit down and let everything fall apart, because that's what's gonna happen. That's all I gotta say. Goodbye.
Next item. And we'll get back to this next Thursday.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. The next tab, the Equipment Replacement Fund. This is where we purchase the vehicles for Public Works that operate out of the 720 facility, the police department vehicles, the police department operating equipment. And this year, for the first time, we have some significant monies going to the countywide interoperable radio system that's coming online. We had a small amount this year to get it set up, and I believe some some issues with the server room that had to be fixed before that could get put in. But the interoperable system, we've been putting money aside for the last number of years for that. So just been banking money. That's actually shown in the committed line item on here, the monies that's been set aside for the interoperable program. And then below footnote 1 is a listing of the vehicles that are to be replaced in the current budget.